if you go on a date with a guy in Korea, after like the second date would technically be okay, then we're more official.
Really?
Yeah.
After the second date, like going on the third date.
Yeah. People kind of automatically like, okay, like I'm gonna get to know this person.
Hi everyone, we are back for another episode of BULGOGI Pod, and today I have on my cousin KEEWON.
Hi.
You guys might know her as Nam Nom on Instagram.
Oh. Yes, Nam Nom.
Yeah, you make me want to move to Korea.
Oh, well, I guess that's good. I guess, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I guess just a little bit about you. Like, where do you live?
Okay, yeah.
Here.
My name is KEEWON. I also go by Nam Nom on social media. I currently live in Korea and I have been here since 2020, so beginning of COVID-19.
Oh.
Literally the beginning of COVID-19.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So you just moved and everything shut down?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. So I'm going to grad school here in Korea, Yonsei University.
Let's go Yonsei.
Yay! We're the Eagles.
Oh, yeah, I was like, I don't know the basketball.
We're the Eagles.
But I go to grad school here and I'm studying international management.
Oh.
Yeah, international management.
So is that within the business
No,
school?
so it's within the international studies.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've been studying there for 2 years now.
Oh wow.
Almost done.
She's almost done. I feel like you've been in school for a minute.
Way too long. 2 years.
2 years.
And so why did you decide to go to grad school? What was like kind of like your thought process and all of that?
Yeah, I guess for me, so I was working in China at the time. During the time I was working, I came back to Korea just to visit because it was Chinese Lunar New Year.
Oh, yeah.
And so we get 2 weeks off actually during that time.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, so it's like everybody gets time off for 2 weeks. And so during the first week I was like vacationing with my family in Vietnam, and that's when we heard about COVID.
Oh, in Vietnam?
In Vietnam, and then everybody was traveling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when we heard that COVID had broken out, it's like kind of too late because all the people from China who were vacationing were like
already
out.
For the
New
Year's.
Year's.
Oh.
And then my company at the time was like, don't come back to the office.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, and they made us actually, I felt like they were prepared for this, which was really weird. That you know how like in the beginning they would make you fill out like the symptom, like if you...
Yeah.
They had all of that prepared.
Oh.
Like what's your temperature? Are you feeling a mild are you like coughing? Do you have a headache? Do you have a fever?
Whoa.
And so like they literally released that once the COVID news broke out that everyone's like,
right,
that the whole country's gonna be on lockdown soon.
Oh shit.
So they were like making sure like all the employees weren't sick around the world because everybody was traveling at the time.
Right.
And so we had to always check in every day, like twice a day, like even though everybody was on leave.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so we would check in morning and then at night. And then if we didn't check in or missed a time, then they would like message us like, oh, are you okay? Like, what's going on?
Oh my god.
And then to make sure that everyone wasn't sick by the time vacation was over.
Right.
Because they didn't know what was going to happen. And then, so the second week I was actually in Korea and I kept on, checking in with like the system, making sure telling them that I don't have COVID.
Right.
And my flight kept on getting canceled.
Oh,
when
to
go back to Shanghai.
Whoa.
So then I was like, oh my goodness.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? And then this was also the time when I was like, it was also the time when I was like, maybe I should quit.
Oh.
Because I was like already thinking about quitting and going back to the States.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, maybe I should quit.
Right.
And then I was like, maybe is this a sign?
The universe
is speaking to me. I need to quit this job.
Okay, so your job at the time was just not it.
Because the company culture that you work every day, pretty much every day.
Yeah.
From 10 to 7, maybe even longer.
Okay.
So every day meaning up until Sunday.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Like literally every day.
Yeah. And so also on Saturdays, because, well, for our team, since we're a global team, we would have to reply to messages from like the US because they're like 1 day behind. And then I feel like in the US also, they're like, these people are working on Sundays, so they get something.
No, literally. Because I have a friend who's at the same company in the US, and she was always like, oh my gosh, I'm working until like 9 p.m. because of the time difference.
Yeah, the time difference.
And so on both ends of the world, you guys are just suffering.
We're just suffering.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So we would work until then, and so I was like, okay, maybe this is a good time to quit. So then I quit. I let them know. And yeah, so basically I ended up just like staying in Korea. I was stuck in COVID. I was like, might as well apply.
Right.
Might as well apply and stay in Korea because I didn't have like a backup plan or anything.
Yeah.
So then I did a little bit of freelance work in between, and then I applied to grad school, and I've been here since.
I know. Yeah. And like, I mean, you kind of grew up a little bit everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So can you like kind of walk us like briefly through that? Like what countries have you been?
So I was born in Korea.
Uh-huh.
And then at the age of 3, right when my younger sister was born, so right when Jackie was born, we moved to Hong Kong and then came back to Korea.
Okay.
And then I was here for 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And then I moved to California.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go Irvine.
Let's
go Irvine.
That was when I stayed at your place for a little bit.
Yeah, no. And
that was fun.
I mean, I like remember. Let's give even more context before our lives. So how KEEWON and I like have like hung out so much throughout all of our childhood.
Yeah.
Our dads are like besties.
Yeah.
Like they traveled all of Europe together. Like I'm pretty sure they got their ears pierced together.
Oh, I did not know that.
I think they might have. I'm not too sure. Okay.
I should ask.
Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe that was a different friend. And so we are both like family friends, and then also like cousins through marriage. And so that's like our relationship. But yeah, kind of going back to like Korea versus like where else you've grown up. Like, do you think that you experienced like a lot of culture shock going from like, I mean, you did like a majority of your like teen adult years like in the US, and so do you think there was like culture shock coming back here?
So for the longest time, because I grew up like in so many different countries, I always thought that I was more, I guess identified myself as more Korean American, but more Korean.
Oh, okay.
Because I was always like, I don't know, because both my parents speak fluent Korean, so then I felt like in their household, I felt very Koreanized. Whereas I guess the definition of Korean Americans are parents who can speak English, just English to their kids, right?
Oh,
very fluently.
Yeah,
like even though my parents are like they're fluent in English too, I guess Korean culture was really strong in them. So and I think they identified themselves more as Korean than Korean Americans, even though they grew up in America.
Right.
So I felt that I had identified myself as more Korean American, but more Korean.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think like if this is the line of Korean American, like you're on this side of Korean.
Right.
Like not over here.
Yeah, not over
this side
here.
of Korean.
Yeah,
but then I'm here. Yeah. So we're just like on either side.
Yeah. You know? So for the longest time I thought I was that. So coming here I was like, oh, it's gonna be fine. Like I'm adjusted. Even though my Korean's not that great, I'm like, it's fine. Like I'm pretty sure I can like get by. But coming here, I realized that I'm very Korean Americanized.
And
it makes sense.
Yeah.
But then I think at the time that was shocking because I always thought I was more Korean.
Right.
Than Korean American.
Right. Because when I like think about like being in America, I'm like, oh, I feel Korean.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's what you think.
Yeah, but the amount of times I've gotten like, oh, are you Chinese? Are you Japanese?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you guys can't tell.
Yeah.
Like, there's that much of a difference.
Yeah. Even living here, like people could see it by just like my little mannerisms. They treat me differently too. Just by like doing something a little different, they're like, oh, this person is not Korean.
They're like foreign.
Yeah, they're foreign. Like so they'll see it from a mile away. And now living here, I see it.
Oh, okay.
Like just like maybe the way someone dresses, or the way they walk, or the way they
walk?
Yeah, or the way they handle themselves in the streets. Because like as a foreigner, when you come to a foreign country, you're not like walking like as if you know the place. You kind of walk like, oh, like look over there. like there's that building. Like, exactly.
Or just on the phone,
kind of like look for your next location. I don't know.
But yeah, so then I've noticed that by doing that, people can see it, and then they treat you a little differently, and then you feel like, oh shoot, I'm not Korean, or I don't identify myself as a Korean.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I know, like you said, in language, the way people dress and look. But I'm actually curious as to the dating.
Oh yeah.
Like what the cultural difference is, because I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I actually have no idea.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like in America, you go on dates with somebody to figure out if you want to be in a relationship. So it's get to know someone and then get into the relationship.
Right.
Whereas I think in Korea, it's flipped. Like
Yeah.
you get into the relationship and then you get to know each other. Is that accurate?
I think. Okay, so I can't say for sure because I haven't had a boyfriend. It's more like dating. But I do know I've heard like so many cases where people. Okay, so if you go on a date with a guy in Korea, after like the second date would technically be, if you ask for an after date, then it would be considered like, okay, then we're more official.
Really?
Yeah.
After the second date, like going on the third date.
Yeah. People kind of automatically like, okay, like I'm gonna get to know this person. That's majority. That's not like, I wouldn't say like that's everybody.
Right.
I don't think everybody thinks that way, but I do think Korea is a little bit faster. They're like, oh, like let's just date each other.
Right.
But there's some people who are like a little bit slower. They're like, oh, after maybe 3 or 4 dates, but even by the third, fourth date, that's already considered like, you know, you're going out.
Oh, you're a sum.
Yeah.
Is that
or more than a sum.
Oh, more than a sum.
Yeah, you guys are already like, oh, identifying yourself as a boyfriend, girlfriend.
Oh.
But yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because from what I've experienced and the guys that I've met, they kind of, it's like they're like, okay, by the second date, I think that's when people are like, okay, we're an official thing if we go on a third date.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So have you gone on a third date here?
Nope.
Nope.
But you've gone on a second date.
I've gone on a second date.
Okay.
So I would say I have pretty good judgment of people from the first meetup.
Yeah.
And also, like, I believe, which I know I have to change. I have to really change this mindset. But if there's no chemistry from the first date, then there is no second date. Everybody says you should always give them 2 tries because, you know, from first impressions, you can't really know that person too well.
Right.
And so I was like, you're right, because, I mean, that's why I haven't, clearly have not been getting anywhere with this. So, I did give one person, and I give multiple people like 2 tries, but there's one person in particular where I gave the second try, and I knew from the first day, I was like, already, I saw red flags, but I was like, nope, people have been giving me advice to go on a second date.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing, so I went on a second date with that guy, and from then on, I realized that I have to just go with my instincts. Because you knew. Because I knew from the first date.
So what were those red flags?
Okay, so.
How did this date go?
Okay, so I met this guy on Bumble.
Okay, Bumble. Okay, so Bumble's a thing here.
Yeah, so in Korea, there's a lot of different dating apps. So there's Tinder, Bumble, Hinge.
Oh, okay.
And then there's also Korean apps as well. So Tinder obviously has the same reputation in America.
Like hookup.
Yeah, hookup. Bumble. There's a lot more people on Bumble too, but you would see a lot of people from the army base
Oh,
or from the base
right.
who are on the apps.
Right.
But I feel like there's now a little bit more diversity there on the apps.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So I think a lot more people are aware of Bumble. And then there's Hinge.
Right.
But I don't go on Hinge because there's a lot of people from abroad who come and like they're like, oh, I'm here to like meet people, and they're only here for temporary.
Oh, it's like I want a tour guide.
Yeah, I want a tour guide. Can anyone give me like good restaurant places? Like I would love to. Like so, they're only here for temporary. So for me, since I'm here long term, there's no need for me to be on Hinge.
Right. Right.
Because most of them are. There are a few, but that's if you're lucky.
Right. Right. Okay, so out of the 3 apps, which one do you use the most?
I use Bumble the most.
Okay.
And this is how I met that guy.
Yes.
I actually forgot his name. Now that I think about it, I'm like, wait, what's his name again? Anyways, I don't remember his name. Shoot. Yeah, I don't remember his name.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. But I met him on Bumble and we connected, and he wasn't like, and I'm not a texter, and I don't think he's a texter either, but he wasn't as aggressive as other people on Bumble.
Oh.
So it was kind of, it felt very natural. So I was like, okay, maybe I should meet up with him for coffee.
Oh, okay.
And so we got coffee. And he was 20 minutes late. So that was the very first sign. But that's fine because like, you know, in Korea, since like, you know, there's traffic and also like with the bus situation or with the public transportation sometimes, like, you know, it's hard to really know what time you'll get to one location because of that kind of situation. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And initially he was like, oh, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. So I was like, okay. And then 10 minutes went to 20 minutes. And then I was like, okay.
It's a little long.
So it's a little long. So I was sitting in the cafe by myself, and I actually usually would wait to like, you know, order. But it was like, I was sitting there for 20 minutes and then the coffee or the owner was like, oh, are you gonna get anything? And I was like, okay, I'll just buy myself coffee then.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's fine. So I bought myself coffee, waited for him, and he comes in. He was wearing a mask and he took it off. And he was not that bad. I was like, oh, okay. And then he also had a New Zealand accent. Yeah. So that I was like, oh, okay.
That's cool.
Yeah. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And and then we were talking, and actually the conversation was really fluid. Like we went back and forth, and he shared a lot about like his hobbies, like what he likes to read. And because we spoke in English, I just felt like our conversations were really natural.
Right.
So I was just like, oh, I like this, right? It's
Yeah.
like nice and he's interesting.
The New Zealand accent.
Yeah, New Zealand accent. So I was like, oh, okay, not bad, not bad. And I think in general, I just had like, okay, I can give this guy another shot for a second date.
Right.
And so we went out on a second date. And this time, like, you know, if it's a second date, you want it to be nice, right? Like you want it, like, because since the second date, you're like, oh, okay, like you want to be a little bit more presentable because it's not a little bit more serious, but you know, it's like, it goes to show that, you know, you have
There's
some
interest.
sort of feeling.
Yeah.
So I, you know, obviously dressed up a little bit, and because we were going to, you know, in Hannam-dong, like the vinyl shop, the big next to the Hyundai card place. So we went there, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cute. And
That's so cute.
Yeah, and you can listen to music there. So if you're ever in Korea, make
Guys.
sure to go there, because make sure to go there maybe during the weekday, because on weekends it's pretty busy. So what you can do there, you can not only buy vinyls, but you can also select 2 vinyls within their library, and you can listen to the music together, right? And so the reason why we went to the vinyl shop was because we bonded over Tom Mish.
Yeah.
Mish, Tom Mish, and his album, right? And I was like, oh, okay. And he likes music too, and he plays music and he composes or something. I forgot, but not important anymore. But yeah, he like loves music, so I was like, oh, okay, perfect. Then let's go listen to music there. And so it was cute. The idea was really cute, I thought. So I was like, okay, great, let's go to the vinyl shop. And we went to the vinyl shop, and then I get a message that he's going to be 10 minutes late because he's stuck in traffic.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, 10 minutes late is fine because because we're in the city, it's a weekend, and that area was really busy too. So I figured like, oh, he's gonna be late.
Yeah.
And then he says he's gonna be another 10 minutes late when I get there, right? And I was like, okay, great.
So
okay.
same exact thing that happened on the first date.
Exactly.
Oh.
And so I was like, okay, so I was like looking around, and I was already like, by that time I was already kind of tired because I've been there before and I've seen the music and I've seen the album,
Right.
or like all the albums that are there.
Right.
And there were just so many people because it was a weekend, so I was already like kind of exhausted.
Yeah.
And then he messaged me again after 10 minutes that he was gonna be another 10 minutes late.
You're joking.
Yeah.
He was half an hour late.
So he was a half an hour late. And so I was like, great.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I was like, great. I was like, I got put together. You know, I was like nice.
You're like,
I was like waiting for him patiently.
And like it's already kind of nerve-wracking, like waiting for someone. So when you keep like pushing back, I don't like it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, great, that's fine. And then might as well because I got nothing else planned. I was like, okay. And so finally he comes and we actually waited in line to listen to the vinyl, and that took another like 20 minutes because there's so many people in front of us. So we're like waiting there together, but when we were waiting, like he was like, oh, I'm so sorry, right?
Yeah.
When I met him in line. And already there were 2 red flags. What do you mean? The first red, like, okay, so him being late was one, right?
Yeah.
The second red flag was that he was wearing a Shiba Inu t-shirt. That was like, you would think like if you're coming out on a second date, you'd look a little bit more presentable, but he was wearing a Shiba Inu t-shirt that was like, you know, like the pajama,
Oh.
like a cartoon, like not like those like cool Shiba Inu pictures, like the big like.
Sorry, any Shiba Inu, I'm like.
It's a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
But his you know, like the pajama t-shirts, like if you wear it for a long time and it's white, it gets a little yellow. Yeah. So it's one of those.
Yellow? On the collar?
It was just a little, not the collar, but you can just see that the white wasn't white anymore. It was like a little like off-white, I guess you could say.
And you knew it didn't come that way.
Yeah, no, it didn't come that way at all. And then I think he was also hiding it, so he was wearing a coat that day too. And I was like, okay, that's fine.
Like if you're gonna be 30 minutes late, be at least like have your outfit together.
No, his outfit wasn't together. And then the second one was that he smelled like he came straight from Korean barbecue. What? Yeah. So it was like a really strong like smell.
Oh yeah, no.
And I was like, it was like, oh shoot, like I was like, oh, did you have lunch? I was like, oh, what did you eat for lunch? He's like, oh yeah, I had like Korean barbecue for lunch.
And you're like, I knew.
I was like, yeah, I clearly that's why but I didn't say that. I was just like, oh, okay, because it was like so strong. And I was like, okay. But he got a hair, and then the reason why he was late, he explained he got a haircut and he got pama.
Oh my gosh, so it took like however many hours.
Yeah. So that's why. But his haircut turned out really nicely because from the first date, it just looked, his hair was like kind of all over the place.
Oh, okay.
But his new haircut was really nice.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was like, oh, it's not bad.
Right.
Yeah.
This man's just be packing in his day.
Yeah. But yeah, then that was like, and then so after that, after we're like listening to music and stuff, I was like, yeah, whatever, right? We decided to go for dinner, and we actually had previously like selected this spot, right? Okay. Well, I selected the spot because he said another spot and it was a ramen spot, right? Okay. But I don't like ramen, so I suggested like, oh, can we go to a different spot, like an izakaya spot? Because it felt like he wanted Japanese food just because of ramen, and they had ramen, but they had other options for me too, but that place didn't. Yeah. And so we picked that spot, and as we were heading there, I was like, oh, like, like, what kind of foods do you like? He's like, oh, I don't really eat a lot of, like, foods. Like, oh, then are you okay with having izakaya? He's like, yeah, I'm okay with having izakaya. And I was like, oh, then do you like makchang, gopchang? He's like, oh, no, I don't. I was like, oh, me too. And then there was just, like, he was just saying, I think from the questions I would ask him about food, I knew that he was a picky eater.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I knew he was a picky eater because I was like, oh, then do you like to eat like this stuff? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, okay, he's a picky eater.
Right.
So as we were walking there, he was circling around me a little bit, right? He was circling around me.
Like as you're walking?
Yeah, so if this was, I don't know. Yeah, if this was me, this was him, he was like kind of going like this the entire time. And I was like, that's so weird, right? And I didn't really like it because I felt like he was, I don't know, it just felt really uncomfortable.
That's weird.
And I didn't know why until later.
Okay.
So he wanted to hold my hand.
What?
While we're walking, right?
Okay.
And luckily, I was holding this hair clip and my phone because the bag I was carrying, I couldn't put like too many things because it was a small bag. So I kept on like I was like walking like this, and he was like trying to circle around me to figure out like which hand to hold. But I had 2 items in my hands. So that's why he was circling around me, and then he kept on going like this. And I was like, are you cold? And he's like, yeah, I'm a little cold. And I was like, really? I'm like not cold at all. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like a beautiful day. And I was like, oh, okay. And we're like walking over, and then I was just like holding my hand on my hair clip like that.
You're so funny, dude.
We walked over. We finally got to the dinner place.
Oh, right. The izakaya place.
And oh my god, I ordered food for us because I knew the place and I like been there before, and so I knew what to get. But then I asked him, I was like, oh, was there anything on the menu that you wanted to get? Maybe ramen or like other stuff because you wanted ramen.
Right.
But he was like, oh no, whatever you want is fine. And I was like, okay. And so I ordered a set of izakaya, like, and I think an 8-piece set and like some other dishes. And the big red flag for me, because I love food.
Yeah.
When the dishes came out, his facial expression was like that. And typically you don't make that kind of expression like with food, right? Or even on a date, like you don't go like
you're not like
just in general, you don't go like
what is that? Yeah.
It was literally just
you two,
like this me and him and the skewers, and he was just like staring at the skewers and going like, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're not a little too much.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get along. I'm sorry. I've already figured this out.
Yeah.
Because while we're eating, he'd like kind of like nibble at it, and I was like, okay. But our conversations, like while we're having dinner, was good.
Oh.
So which is why like I liked him in that sense, because like he was like
you're just
talking
vibing,
with us, we're vibing, we're like talking about so many different things about life, about where he wants to be in the future, like what his passions are, and I was like, wow, that's like really interesting, like something I can learn from him because he is older.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, he was maybe like 3 years older, so not too bad.
Yeah, I feel like that's like kind of the perfect amount.
So I was like, oh, okay, like, and he was like telling me about his life story and like all of that, and then another red flag,
dude, flag after flag after flag after flag.
He has a really bad habit of picking his nose. I think.
Wait, you're joking?
No. I think he doesn't realize it. That's one thing.
This man's is picking his nose on a date.
Yeah. Oh, he did that on the first date too. So it wasn't like very like you know, like some people, like if their nose is itchy, they would either just like rub like the side like this, or just like quickly look over and go like this. No, he would actually he would stick up his finger in his nose.
He was straight just digging.
Yeah, but I really think it's out of habit, because he did that on our first date and did that on our second date. And you know how when some people do it out of habit, they just don't realize they're doing it?
Yeah.
And so I think it was out of habit, so he would really like kind of like rub his nose. But obviously I kind of look away and I don't.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, let me not embarrass you right now. But
so that was another huge red flag for me.
that is actually insane.
Yeah.
Someone picking their nose on a date. Like,
Yeah.
that's like literally the most extreme thing I've ever heard.
But then I think I ignored it on the first date because of our conversations.
Right.
Because the conversations were like, oh my god, like, you know, so cool. Like, he would recommend me books. And I was like,
oh my god, an intellectual.
yeah. So that's why I was like, oh, okay. Because I've been wanting to, like, you know, like, read more books. And he's like, oh, you should read this book.
Right.
And, like, it's about this. And he'd, like, tell it to me. And I'd be, like, really interested in wanting to read. And then I literally actually read the book.
Oh, wow.
I know. I actually read the book. And it was just a short story.
Oh,
it was like
okay.
a short story book.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, it's actually pretty good. And so that's why I wanted to, like, meet up with him the second time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but then, you know, there were multiple red flags.
Yeah. Yeah.
But our conversation went well during the dinner, and this is where I should have ended it, right?
Okay.
Because I knew even during the dinner, like while we're eating, I knew that maybe we should just like end it. I knew I'm not going to meet him again.
Right.
But he decided to pay for a dinner, right? Mm-hmm. Which is fine, right?
Is that the norm here?
That's a norm,
okay.
right? That's the norm here, right?
Uh-huh.
If you like the person, you pay for the dinner, right? But in my head, I don't know why, and this is like a really bad, I've learned it from this date, is that if he pays for dinner, I felt obligated that I had to get coffee.
Oh,
because I do that with my friends often, like, oh, if they're paying for something, then in return, I'll like get coffee or dessert or something of that sort. But in Korea, if you ask for an after the dinner, like, oh, let's say you finish dinner, and typically in Korea you go for drinks, right? But then because I don't drink,
it was dessert.
Dessert or coffee.
Yeah.
So I was like suggesting, oh, do you want to go get coffee? And he knew I didn't drink too. So he was like, oh, do you want to go get coffee? It's on me, right? Because you paid for dinner. But that is called an after. And so that typically it'd be like drinks, but I went for coffee. And that shows the other person that I'm interested in that person and I want to like go and continue the relationship. But I shouldn't have ended it there.
Because then you're sending like mixed signals.
Yeah, but I didn't know. I didn't know that was a thing. But I guess even in America, like if you have a good dinner, you're like, oh hey, do you want to go for drinks?
For drinks, yeah.
Then obviously that's like showing that, you know. But then for me, I was just really naive.
I see.
So go for coffee.
And after the date, was he the one to be like, hey, want to meet for a third time?
Yeah, so at coffee, I mean, it was good. It was, conversation then was good.
Okay.
So I actually was like, oh, it was good. But there were just like certain things, I think, even during the coffee, even during dinner,
right,
where there was like a lot of different red flags. Where
yeah.
I was like, okay, I should probably just end it after coffee.
Right.
And so after our coffee, right, I guess he thought that there would be an after, right? So like a third date, right? So he would come down and because he wasn't able to hold my hand during our walk during dinner.
Right, because
my two hands are occupied. He was like this, right? And he was like, and then I was a little bit like, oh, like I didn't know what to do. And then I was like, oh, what do you mean? And then he was like, oh, do you want to hold my hand? I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, maybe next time. I was like, maybe next time. So then from
he was holding on his hand.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And I felt bad too.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure, because I knew he wanted to hold my hand from before.
Right. Oh, you knew!
I knew.
After this?
After like circling around me, I knew. And he was like, I think the biggest giveaway was him being like, this. I'm cold.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh. And then so I just felt bad after like, I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, because that's a lot of courage to be like, hey,
ask.
Yeah, to ask.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And then
I see.
the end.
And then the end. No more.
Yeah, no more.
No more.
That was my last.
Whoa.
Yeah, date with
Okay,
him.
wait, so questions.
Yeah.
Like, I know, because when I go to Cheonggicheon,
Yeah.
like the river,
Yeah.
it's the most single I will ever feel in my
I know,
entire life.
it's
It's
a
just
lot.
couple.
Yeah.
And so I see like all the PDA, all the matching outfits and shoes
Oh, yeah,
and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so like, is it common for people to like hold hands on second dates? Like when does that happen?
Hannah, I think you're asking the wrong person.
I think it really depends on the relationship with that person.
Okay.
Because let's say if that person, if they are both vibing, like in America it's the same thing. If they're both vibing, they'll hold hands, right?
Right.
If it's, and also like in Korea, everything is so romantic. Like the walks around Cheonggicheon, and like the weather is beautiful now.
Right.
And like there's so many beautiful places within Seoul that people love to go around and date. So obviously the timing for, I mean, if they're on date and they feel, if there's some sort of mutual connection, then obviously people will start to naturally hold hands.
I see.
But
But not for him. Not for the guy whose name you literally don't remember.
shoot.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
That's okay. That's okay. Irrelevant.
I mean, it was a couple months ago, so
Yeah.
it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so dating in Korea.
Yeah, that was one date. But there's been multiple good dates too.
Right.
I've dated guys who just speak only Korean. But they've been also nice too, because like for me I think it's a little harder just because
Right.
I'm a lot more comfortable speaking English and like speaking out my thoughts in English, whereas like in Korean sometimes there are moments when I have to filter.
Oh.
And then I'm just like, oh shoot, how do I say this, or how should I say it so that that person understands me better?
Right, because it's hard enough to like speak your emotions in
Yeah, in
English. Like I can barely do that, so to do it in a different language, it's like
it's harder.
too much.
But I've been very fortunate where the guys have actually been very understanding, and like they're like explaining things to me in Korean. Where like, oh, this word you can say it like this. Or we would teach each other like English. Oh, I would teach that person English and he would teach me something in Korean.
Right. This
And
is the
so,
best foreign language exchange program.
Exactly. It is.
Yeah.
And so, but I realized that culturally, like it just does not work. Even though, language I'm able to communicate, I do think I do like somebody who's been abroad, who's like, had their education abroad too.
Right.
I think that's one thing I learned while I've been on dates in Korea with Korean people.
Okay.
Korean people.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're like an expat,
Yeah.
so you kind of want someone
who's
with
like
a similar.
Obviously, I get like really fortunate. I'm like, oh, I'm so fortunate. I feel like, oh wow, like there are people who haven't traveled as much as I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then also it makes it a little tougher.
Yeah.
Dating pool wise, because like you need them to be cultured and all of that, and like there are only so many expats.
It's a very small community. A lot of people think like, especially on social media and on like YouTube and stuff, people are like, oh, I'm moving to Korea alone, or like stuff.
Right.
You would think there's a lot of them here, but there's actually really few people here, and everyone somewhat knows each other because of social media. So there's not a lot of us here.
Yeah.
I feel like now that Corona has like, died down and everyone's like, the country's been open and everyone's out, I feel like a lot more are coming in. But I do feel like the expat community is small.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to date.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Same with LA. It's too small.
It's too small.
I need to move.
Yeah, so that's why you should really consider either moving to Korea or wherever you want to be.
Yeah, just
experience
somewhere else.
it. Yeah.
I need to get out of Los Angeles.
Outside of California.
Yeah. So okay, maybe I'll come
To
over.
Korea. But I might not be here.
Yeah. That's
I might
okay.
not be here.
I'll just ask you for advice. and then hopefully my Korean will get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That will be.
Yeah.
That's like the best way though. But if you just don't put yourself, that's another thing. A lot of people think by coming into a foreign country, they'll quickly learn the language.
Right.
But you get so comfortable here with your expat community that you don't tend to go outside of your community to actually
like meet
learn.
locals
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So that's another thing I've learned while I have been living in China and also here in Korea. It's like if you're stuck in an expat community, you feel so comfortable that it's so hard for you to get outside of it and actually get to know locals. Yeah.
Oh.
And then that's when that's why I tell people when they do visit Korea, like,
Yeah.
oh, like, make sure, if you're gonna move here, like, make sure to, like, you know, it'd be nice to have a community too,
Right.
but they'll always be there.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if you want to learn the language, it's best to, like, kind of get out of that bubble.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
I
that's
need to work on
hard.
it.
That's really hard.
Like when I'm with people who
Oh.
only speak Korean, I'm like I can't talk.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to say.
I mean, I still feel that too.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, I still feel that because I've been stuck in that expat bubble for so
Right.
long that it's just like harder for me to practice it.
just gotta get out of her like bubble.
Oh.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
That's I don't know. Yeah,
I hope that was informative.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think I've always like thought about if I could date a Korean,
Mhm.
like someone from Korea,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
I think culturally you would think it's similar,
Mhm.
but you can tell.
Yeah.
Like immediately,
Immediately.
like vibes are.
Then would you, if you were to date somebody, like, let's say, like, would you want someone who, if you date someone who's Korean American, would you want that person to be also good at Korean?
I think that I see because I'm not good at Korean.
Yeah.
I like want them to be good at Korean.
Also better than you.
better than me. But then also I like feel like I can't have that expectation because I'm not good at Korean. You know, but like
Yeah,
how
I
we're
know.
both if we visit Korea, let's say,
Yeah.
or we're in Korea, how are we gonna get around? Who's talking? Who's talking?
Who's gonna be communicating?
Yeah. Because like
true.
you know, even like some of the, I'm just trying to figure out what they're telling me at the cafes. I'm like takeout.
Oh, you know the word takeout and to go.
It's so good.
It's so
It starts with a
confusing.
P.
Oh, like 포장.
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 That means takeout.
Yeah, yeah. But you didn't say takeout here.
Yeah, I know. They always say 포장, and I'm like,
Yeah. 포장 or 매장.
I'm like, 아니요. Because I thought it was, oh, do you want a receipt? I'm like, I don't know. So, yeah, we'll work on that.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
work on
So
that.
매장 is inside the cafe or inside the store, 매장, and then 포장
포장.
is like to take
Take
out.
out.
But usually, if you use the word takeout,
Like,
they
they'll know.
understand. Yeah,
Right,
they
yeah.
understand.
Yeah, I feel like the English, there's been a lot more English.
Yeah,
than
yeah,
before. Yeah.
a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said that you were dating older.
Yeah.
How have you noticed like the what is it? 후배.
Oh,
like-
yeah. The age. That's right. The
The
age.
elderly thing.
Yeah. That's another. Oh.
Yeah. What is that like?
That's another thing. A lot. I didn't realize this until living here. How strict it is. Like, so for example, I'm a 95, right? But
Okay.
my birthday is in December.
Oh, okay.
So then people would kind of group me as like 96 sometimes just because my birthday is so late.
Right. Right.
So then people say like if your birthday is that late, then you are considered, you can't, it really depends on the person and how they sort them out. So let's say like that person's 95 and he's like in January or something.
Yeah. So
then-
almost a year older
yeah,
than
almost
you.
a year older than me. Then some people will be like, "Oh, you're
You're younger.
you're way younger than me."
Oh.
Yeah, so there's some people who actually like really care about that and
Right.
really say like, "Oh no, like you can't call me, we can't be friends because I have friends who are probably in the month of November
Right.
who I tell them that they're younger than me." So there's some people like that.
Oh.
Yeah, so it really depends on the person on how like strict they are
Right. Right.
with, or how they really, I don't want to say pride themselves. I guess they pride themselves in their age.
Right. Right.
So that's why. But actually in July, maybe next month, is when the Korean president finally gets rid of the Korean age.
Oh, because here,
Yeah.
your like year in the stomach
Yeah.
is considered like your first year, right?
Right.
Oh.
So they're finally getting rid of that. So now everybody in Korea, I think once that law passes, because the new president wanted to implement this new law about international age, so now everybody will be going by international age once that law has pretty much set in stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess like right now, pre-law, like people still ask you, right? Like,
Yeah, people
what
still
year are
ask you. Yeah.
And like, do you feel the dynamics change after you reveal your age?
I don't. I guess maybe because I don't really care, but I feel like the other person, if they do ask, then they probably
care.
really care.
Right.
Yeah. But I feel like slowly people are a little bit more like I feel like nowadays, I think it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
There's some people who are like, no, age does really
matter
to them. You have to call me like 언니, 오빠, or 선배 or something like that.
Right.
But there are other people who are just like, oh yeah, like let's just talk freely. That really depends on the relationship with that person too. Like some people who are younger will probably speak 반말, which is like informal, and be like, even though that person's older,
right,
they'll just be like, yeah, or like, 형, 누나, 이렇게 해, right? But again, that really depends on the relationship and how that person how that person considers age as importance or not.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm trying to think of anything else. Anything else?
Oh.
Do you have advice for people that want to move here?
Yeah. I would definitely say a lot of people are like, oh, how do you make friends in Korea, or how do you find your community in Korea? I've met a couple people here. Like obviously I have school.
Okay.
Like school definitely for me has been one form of community, but also I've surprisingly met a lot of people through social media.
Oh.
Yeah. So now, and it's really easy because there's so many people who live in Korea, like expats who live in Korea, and they all somehow form connections over social media, and you can DM them and be like, hey, like I saw your post, let's meet up, let's grab coffee or something like that.
Right.
And then you just kind of form your own group of friends from there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, social media is one of them. Another one of them is like, if you want to, I guess, learn the language more, you can always join clubs. Like running clubs, like sports clubs. Like if you go to, so for me, I currently go to F45, which is
oh, I know it.
Yeah. It's in America. Yeah. So F45, that's also another great way, or like any sports center or any group like sports activities, that's another great way to meet people there too, because there are people you can bond over like the same, I don't know, competitiveness of like working out.
Right.
That's one way as well. There's also like Facebook groups too. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of Facebook groups where you can meet different, I don't know, expats through different events, or I don't know, if you like to go clubbing, you can meet people through clubbing or drinking at a bar. You somehow, because like a lot of people, they tend to go to the same places. A lot of the people, so you can meet people that way.
Right.
And then like especially like Hongdae or like Itaewon,
right,
or like where there's a lot more foreign communities there.
Right.
You'll run into certain people and you'll meet them and you'll hang out with them, and then you'll bond over the same experiences that you have in Korea.
Yeah.
And then party it out together. So there's a lot of there's so many ways to meet in Korea.
Right.
And then you just really have to put yourself out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're kind of like at home, then obviously it's kind of harder, but if you put yourself out there, be the first person to reach out or
just like initiate
hangouts. You'll be able to meet people, and you'll be able to meet so many people just by like meeting one friend too.
The network just grows.
It grows,
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that makes it a lot less scary.
It is
for just like hearing it. Like, okay, there are opportunities. Yeah.
And I feel like also because you're an expat, and there's so few foreigners, and now that you hear them speaking English, right?
Right.
Like you can like really be like, oh hey, like do you want to? Some people actually do that. Some people would like bond, and they would see like hi,
like where are you from?
Yeah. And that's how you would bond too.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
So,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I don't know if I shared a little too much. I hope it helps.
I love it so much. And then for the people on Instagram, you're Namnom.
Namnom.
Any other social media you want to plug?
I mean, Namnom. I also do TikTok.
Let's go, TikTok.
TikTok.
Everything will be in the show notes below. So be sure to follow, support. She gives awesome like cafe, dessert, like recommendations, food recommendations. So and then you guys know where to find BULGOGI. We're on all social media platforms, BULGOGI Podcast. And I think that's it for today.
I know. Well, thank you for having me. I feel so honored.
Thank you. I'm like, oh my god, I need to hear more of your story.
I have so many more. I've been filtering, but I was like, no, I can share this with this. I can share a little bit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, okay. Okay, bye.